Hi, John. Thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us on the Growth Mindset podcast. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. John, for people that might not have probably looked at your content or heard you from an India perspective, because obviously I'm based out of India, how would you like to introduce yourself? And another important question that I'd like to directly start off with is what shifts are you seeing in terms of sales training these days, right? With the rise of AI and everything.
Yeah, so do both. Actually, I have a pretty good following out in India because I've traveled quite a bit there. I've been to Chennai multiple times, Delhi, Mumbai, like all the fun ones. So I do have a large portion of people from India following me, which I always love. So thank you for that. If you have been paying attention, for those of you who haven't, I've been in sales for a while now. I got into sales kind of like everybody else. I didn't back. I'm creeping up on 50 years old right now, so it's kind of freaking me out, but 30 years ago graduated, give or take, with my marketing degree. Because again, here in the States, you really, sales isn't a profession you can, well, it's finally starting to become a profession you
Yeah.
can get a degree in, but back then there was nothing. So marketing was it. And I kind of fell into sales with DeWalt Power Tools, giving away free tools to construction workers. And then from there, kind of graduated to Home Depot with DeWalt, where I was selling a little bit more. Right, I had to take a $10,000 order, turn it into a $50,000 order. Then I sold copiers for Xerox, which that's where I got my real sales education. I mean, it's the definition of a commodity, right? And I sold to state and local government, so it was
Wow.
brutal because
Yeah.
like I couldn't even negotiate on contract. Like my price was my price, right?
Yeah.
Did that for a year. That's where I learned how to sell and take rejection. Then I started a company with a few friends of mine from high school, and it was an outsourced IT services company, so small business, self funded, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I took every training. I was 23, so I took every training. I took Sandler, Miller Hyman, Taz, Spin, all of it, and I came across this one group called Basho that I really liked because it was super tactical
Hmm.
and I loved it. So I used it, and my company became the fastest growing company in Massachusetts for a few years in a row. Got us to about 12 million in revenue and about 85 employees, and then sold off to Staples. So Staples came and bought us,
Hmm.
and I spent about a year going through that integration. And come to find out, apparently, I'm not a corporate guy. I don't have much of a filter, and I really don't like playing politics. So after a little while, Staples offered me another position. They fired me. And then when I was looking for a new job, Basho said, "Hey, do you want to be a trainer?" And my original response was absolutely not, because I don't like trainers, or at least most of
Hmm.
them. And the reason was because most sales trainers that I had experienced up until that part of my career, we either failed sales professionals or professional presenters, right? And we've all
Hmm.
been through the trainings where you can tell the trainer's never actually done with it, or if they did it, it was like 30 years ago, right? So I was like, I don't think I want this, but they had a unique model there where you had to sell in order to train. So you had to use the techniques to find
Hmm.
your own customers that you could train on those techniques. And that really resonated with me because, I always say to people, I'm not really a trainer. I'm a sales rep who happens to train. I got sales is my
Hmm.
passion. And so, but because the training worked so well for me, I was very passionate about helping other people use it. And so I joined Basho, and then took on some bigger accounts, brought on some bigger ones. And then to make a very long story short, they screwed it up and I took it over. So I went off on my own about 12 years ago with JB Sales and worked with companies like Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, Google, Amazon, Okta, Dropbox, most of the tech and the SaaS companies, and treat them on all aspects of sales, prospecting, all the way through negotiations, and still to this day sell every day myself. Your question about what's changed in sales training. I think a lot's changing in sales in general, and I know we'll get into that. As it relates to sales training, I think it's challenging right now because whoever makes money off of selling information, selling their knowledge, I think is in trouble, myself included, because AI is now smarter than anybody out there if you use it the right way. I mean, right now, I put content online for 20 years. You could legitimately go into ChatGPT right now and say, coach me like John Barrows, and it will. It'll be pretty good. So I think, we're all going to have eventually individualized coaches that know everything about our strengths and weaknesses and what we need to know and product knowledge and all this other stuff at our fingertips. Like it's already there, but most people aren't there yet with it. But there's no question we're going to, our smartphone is going to be our virtual assistant, basically tie into everything that we do and be able to give us any information we need. So from a training standpoint, we have to figure out where the gaps are. Like what can AI not do? right? And those are the EQ things, not IQ, right? I keep telling people IQ is over. Let's just please stop, right? Anybody who's worried about their IP, like, please. That's why I kind of roll my eyes at companies that are worried about, like, oh, integrating AI. It's like, tell me what secret thing you think is not already out there, right? And they're like, well, this, and I go on ChatGPT and I ask it a question. I'm like, is that, oh, that? It's already there. So can we please stop with this? Now, don't get me wrong. There's some IP stuff that is absolutely critical from a business standpoint, but for the most part, especially people like me, your sales methodology, come on. So that IQ piece of this is needs to be leveraged, but I think we have to get back to EQ and the component of the human part of this engagement, right? How to read people, how to relate, how to engage, how to be curious, how to have empathy, right? How to be a problem solver, right? So all these things are shifting for the sales rep. So therefore, in the sales training world, we need to find ways to, engage from a human standpoint and connect that, and then leverage technology to handle the rest effectively, right? Like frontline coaching, analyzing people's strengths and weaknesses, role play scenarios, all that stuff can be done with AI way better than humans can.
Yeah, and this is interesting what you've just mentioned, John, right? Because I've always been very interested in understanding human behavior and why we do the way we do things. And I think that kind of also, as you mentioned, you're highlighting that's going to be a very important skill, because yes, as you mentioned, AI can do a lot of things, but it cannot handle the human aspect. And I think that is what people are going to miss down the lane, is that having that real conversations with humans, right? So how do you now, if you had to say, because I think there are a couple of three, four important pointers you mentioned. I'd like to we can dissect them one at a time. The number one being, you mentioned AI is able to do a lot more better, right? In terms of getting information, it is available at your fingertips. So first, are people's job at stake? Can AI replace sales reps? And if yes, what kind of sales reps are going to be replaced? And people that don't want to be replaced and want to leverage AI, what can they start doing to become smarter?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick on sales, but I think this is for every profession, quite frankly. I think any profession that the majority of what they do is, admin type stuff is
Hmm.
are going to be challenged. Like, a lot of sales reps fill up their days with busy work. I think there's some statistic by, always put out by Salesforce in their state of sales report that talks about how the average sales rep only spends like 37% of their time on actual sales things. You know what I mean? Like engaging with clients, and the rest is admin, prep, all this other stuff. And so on one hand, AI can take over all those admin type things, prep for meetings, follow up, update CRM, all that stuff, to give us back the time to actually engage with clients. I don't think a lot of reps though have that skill, quite frankly, because I think for the
Hmm.
past 10 years, my keynote that I do these days, I call it Age of the Agile Sales Org, and I position 2010 to 2022 as the golden age of sales, especially in tech. And the reason I say that is because when interest rates were free and there was a grow at all cost mentality in the tech industry, sales wasn't really that hard. I mean, we have
Hmm.
way over engineered the sales process. I mean, we got SDRs blasting out cadences, and like with like marketing teams coming up with messaging, creating cadences that don't even include the sales rep, giving them to the sales reps and telling them to push buttons, right? And
Yeah.
like, that's not selling, right? And then, SDRs go through all that and then maybe trip over an opportunity, ask a few
Hmm.
questions, hand it off to the AE. The AE probably asks the same questions and then give some canned piece of shit demo. And then we get the SE involved, who's probably going to ask the same questions and give maybe hopefully a better demo. But then we're going to offer a massive discount, right? And so like,
Hmm.
that's what sales has become for the past 10 years. So I think we have a
Yeah.
whole generation of sales reps that, and by no fault of their own, by the way, like, it kind of talk about, everybody gets frustrated with the trophy generation. Like, oh, these kids, all they want is, everybody wants a trophy. It's like, well, yeah, well, who gave them the trophies? We
Hmm.
did. The parents
Yeah.
did. So it's not
Yeah.
their fault. So as much as I think it's a mess over here, it's actually leadership's fault for trying to over engineer the sales process. And so now we have a
Hmm.
whole generation of sales reps that fundamentally, in my opinion, don't know how to sell. They don't know how to
Hmm.
have a normal conversation. They don't know how to come off script. They don't, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that part of it is just, and unfortunately, I think the reps that are acting like robots right now are going to get replaced by robots. So yes, but I think it's also across every industry. I think we're at an 80-20 right now. The Pareto's rule here. I think 20%
Yeah.
of every population, every profession, are going to be assassins with this stuff. Because if you use this stuff the right way, it's a superpower. If you so
Hmm.
here's an example. My experience here. We've gone from a search engine to an answer engine.
Yes.
And that's a dangerous thing because Google's search engine, right? At least it gave us the perception of choice. So we would
Hmm.
Google something and we'd kind of look through and we'd pick the article, we'd maybe read that article and be like, okay, that makes sense. And there's my opinion. That's how I'm going to do this. Whereas now with AI, pick your model, you ask it a question, it gives you the answer. And
Yeah.
inherently that answer can't be accurate. I still think the number one source of data for AI to scrape from is Reddit. You know what I mean? So come
Yeah,
on.
but yeah.
So for the people who are curious, the people who are understand that it's not there for an answer, it's there to help ideate and come up, right? It's a super, hey, tell me more about that. Where'd you get that information? Give me a different perspective on this, right? That type of thing. But unfortunately, that is a very small portion of our population. Most people are lazy as shit. And so what they're going to do is they're going to ask AI, they're going to use AI like Google. And that's the worst way you could possibly use it. And they're going to ask it a question or tell it to do something like write me an email, do this, whatever. And whatever the answer is, they're going to copy, paste it, and hit send. And in that scenario, I don't know what the value of the human is. I just don't.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why I do think a vast majority of sales reps are in really big trouble. And by the way, it's not because of all the AI tools that are automating sales. Okay. I used to be worried about those. I'm not worried about those anymore because I did all this SDR crap that's going out there. Like it's just better crappy emails. It's better spam. You know what I mean? Like it's just, whatever. My fear is more when the client wakes up and realize they don't really need to engage with us if they don't want to.
Hmm.
And if anybody doesn't think like they're in trouble, what I tell them to do is, all right, do yourself a favor. Go into ChatGPT, pick your AI, I don't care, and pretend like you're a potential customer for your solution. So for me, I would be like, I'm a VP of sales of a 50-person sales team. I have 20 SDRs. I have 30 AEs. I'm looking at the JB sales training. Tell me what I need to know. What are the pros and cons? How does he compare against the other top 3 vendors on G2 Crowd? Blah, 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 right? And when you realize in a 5-minute conversation with ChatGPT, you get more value out of some 22-year-old
Yes.
SDR who's going to ask you BANT questions, flip you to an AE who's going to ask you the same questions. That, you know what I mean? Like, there's just no
Yeah.
comparison. There's no comparison at all. And so we now need to leverage that as sales reps, as a matter of fact. I'm going to do a post this weekend on my newsletter where at first I was, historically I've always been sales reps really just need to be the quarterback. Okay. They don't need to have
Hmm.
deep product knowledge. They don't have to, right?
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
just need to be able to pull the right people in and coordinate the opportunities and make sure that things are moving, right? But then when AI really started hitting, I was like, oh my God, like sales reps
Hmm.
need to be much more product knowledge centric, right? Because they got to be able to answer the question because the client's going to
Hmm.
be able to know so much by the time they engage with us, right? Now I've loosened up on that a little bit with a different mentality. So if you think of how powerful this stuff is at our fingertips, I think every company, and if the company doesn't do this, I would personally do this as a rep. I would create a custom GPT that doesn't go out to the big internet, right? It's theoretically safe
Yeah.
with my data, which I don't believe at all. But anyways, I would take that and I would put as much company and product knowledge into that GPT as I possibly could. So basically, like a sales engineer, I would take as
Yeah.
much knowledge as I could and try to create a sales engineer GPT that had my companies, like the offerings, the details, the products, all of it. And then sitting in front of a customer, the days of I don't know, let me get back to you are over. Because if you're not bringing value to the conversation immediately, they'll go find it someplace else. And so, oh, let me get back to you on that one. You lose control. You now all of a sudden now you're chasing. So now, if we use AI the right way and we use it out loud with the customer, not pretending like it's this little thing behind us giving us tips to like
Hmm.
handle a certain
Hmm.
objection or say a certain thing, it's like, fuck that. I'm going to sit there and if Irshad, you and I are talking right now and you're like, hey, John, so how does, blah, blah, blah work? I'll be like, you know what, Irshad, I'm not 100% sure. Hold on a second. Let's find out together. And I open up
Hmm.
my GPT, I screen share it with you, and I'm like, hey, I'm sitting here with Urshad. I've already prepped for the meeting. You know what he does. You know what the company's all about here.
Yeah.
He's asked, we just talked about this component of my training, and we're kind of curious right now how this aligns with blah. Could you give us kind of a breakdown based on your knowledge of my
Hmm.
business, all this other stuff, how that
Hmm.
might help him? And we'll do it out loud together.
Yeah.
And to me, that helps obviously answer questions, but I think it also helps differentiate you as a sales rep
Yes.
because you're bringing value to them. Most people are still in the dark ages when it comes to AI.
Hmm.
Half the value that I bring to the table when I train people right now, yes, the techniques, yes, the training, absolutely, it's all skills based and everything else. But half the value I bring is waking them up to the power of AI. Because I go back and I teach them the fundamentals and the challenge, right? And I'm like, so this is why it's important to understand this. Well, now that we understand the fundamentals, now let's jump into AI and see how fast we can do this. And I'll turn on my microphone and I'll just start like word vomit right into it. I'll be like, blah, 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 this is what I'm trying to figure out. Blah, 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 what do you think of it? And it kicks out this like beautiful meeting prep doc or whatever it is. And people are like, oh my God, like, are you serious?
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, here's some
Hmm.
instructions on how to personalize your GPT. Here's some instructions on how to create a custom GPT. And by the way, that all takes me like 5 seconds because I go into my GPT and I say, I'm working with this customer. Could you please put together a step-by-step guide to help them build their own GPT? Could you, you know what I mean? And I send it over to
Yeah.
them. They're like, oh my God, this is genius. I'm like, yeah, it took me 5 seconds. So the idea here is like, it has nothing to do at this point, and it never has, by the way. Has nothing to do with what you sell. It has everything to do with how you sell. That's what sells, right? Because what you sell, features, functions, speeds, feeds, like whatever. You know what I mean? If you want to get into that battle, good luck. That's a race to the bottom, quite frankly. And that's not selling either. That's you on a spreadsheet of
Yeah.
all the different features and that stupid grid that everybody looks at. That's not selling. How you sell, the value you bring to the conversation, the relationship you develop, the tools, you know what I mean? That's what
Yeah.
differentiates you. Because if your product doesn't do what it baseline should do, you're not even
Hmm.
invited to the table at this point. It's not, it's like
Yeah.
that's table
Agreed.
stakes at this point. Like whatever
Yeah.
you do needs to fundamentally do whatever that is, at least as good as some of your competitors. Okay.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be the best, but it can't be the worst. You can't have
Hmm.
huge bad reviews on, all the sites and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as long as it does what it does, like nobody cares. Nobody cares
Yeah.
about the features. Nobody cares about that little stupid widget thing. They buy, people still to this day, psychology wise, they still buy on emotion, they back it up with fact. It's
Yes.
still true to
True.
this day, right?
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
it's, and going back to psychology, like that's how we are as humans. That's
Yes.
why all these arguments that you hear online, you could throw as many facts as you want at people about like what, oh, but did you see this? And this is a factual data sheet that goes against what you believe. It doesn't work because
True.
what I believe, my feeling, my emotion
Yes.
is far stronger than any data sheet you
True.
will ever put in front of me.
True. True. I love the answer around, why the psychology aspect of things are true. And there are a lot of studies also, right, John, that indicate that we think we make decisions based on facts, but that is not what the result says, right? There are a lot of Harvard studies that indicate over and over again that it's our emotions deep down buried that are unconsciously, subconsciously driving those decisions as well. And you've touched upon a couple of important pointers which I'd like to get your thoughts on. And one of the first things which is very critical, John, is the ability to use AI the right way so that we can become lethal, become one of those top 20% and not the 80, right? So if you can give me, let's say, top 3 or 5 tips that, let's say, if I'm a sales rep, I should do to ensure I get the edge over everyone else. What are those top 3 or 5 things?
First and foremost, if you haven't spent the $20 on fucking ChatGPT, spend the 20 goddamn dollar. Like I can't believe it. I stood in front of a group one time and I was talking AI, and this one of the questions from the reps was like, "Well, our company doesn't give us the enterprise version or the $20 version of ChatGPT. So what are we supposed to do?" And my answer to him was, "Get out of sales if that's your mentality." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Dude, it's $20. Like, take out your stupid credit. You have the most powerful consultant, trainer,
Yes.
research assistant in the world at your fingertips for $20, and you're not going to spend that money. You shouldn't be, in my opinion, in that. If that's your mentality, you shouldn't be in sales. because that is not a growth mindset. That is not something that like if you're waiting for your company to invest in technology, if you're waiting for your company to invest in training for you, you're one of those irrelevant reps that, in my
Mm,
opinion, doesn't have a chance. Okay, you have to be proactive with your career right now more than any other time I've ever seen. And so if you're, and again, if you don't think you can sell enough with the like what? So, anyways, step one, spend the $20, okay, or whatever platform you use. Spend the money so you can customize it. Spend the money so you can create your custom GPTs, those type of things. Step two is personalize your GPT. Right. For me, I'm going to keep leaning in on ChatGPT because it's the one I use. But if you go into ChatGPT in the settings, there's a section that calls personalized. And what you do is you tell the GPT how you want it to react. Like, so you
mm,
give it a personality, you tell it what to like, hey, I want mine to be very direct and to the point and no fluff and don't lie to me and don't make me feel, don't always tell me I'm great and
yeah.
all that crap, right? And the
Yeah.
easiest way to do that, by the way, is go into regular chat GPT and say, hey, I'm trying to personalize my GPT here. Could you ask me 10 questions to understand more about me so you can create a paragraph that is optimized to fit into the personalization of my GPT? It will then ask you 10 questions. It will then produce the paragraph. Then you will open up the personalization piece. You will plug that in there. And now all of a sudden you will have it talking like you want it to talk.
Yeah. Nice.
The third thing is start customizing, start creating. So that's personalizing. So I want to make sure I'm clear on this. That is personalizing your main GPT, what I just mentioned there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then there's customizing GPTs. So there's a button in GPT called Explore. You click on that, it says create, and you can create a GPT to do whatever you want. So you want a
Mm,
research assistant? Say, hey, go in there and be like, I need a research assistant to help me research my clients, and I want it to do this, 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 and this. I want it to act like this and everything else. Again, ask me 10 questions so that you are crystal clear on what I want you to do, and then it'll ask you those 10 questions and it'll create the GPT, and then you pin that and then you start using that to research your accounts as opposed to going on Google
mm,
and doing that type of thing, right?
yeah.
So the sheer like that, just that 1, 2, 3 step right there will start you to get you to understand the power of this.
Mm,
And then the best thing I've done is turned on the microphone.
yeah.
That's the best thing I've done. So I have like, for instance, I have a strategy GPT that I've got
Mm,
all my business information in there, my goals, my strategy, my finance, like all that stuff. And every time I'm trying to make a decision on something to do or whatever, it's like I light up that GPT, I turn the microphone on, and I just have a full blown strategy session. And I'm like, well, what about this? Could you run this analysis for me? Okay, that's probably a bad idea. What if I did this? How much would that impact my revenues? And what if I wanted to retire 5 years early? How could I do that? Right? All that stuff. And I just keep talking to it. And that way you start to realize it's not really about prompting. Yes, the better you are at prompting, okay, but there's even a GPT to help you prompt better. You know what I mean? Like I have a prompt GPT that somebody created, and all I do is I talk into it. I'm like, here's kind of what I think I want to do. Could you create this detailed prompt? Again, ask me. And I keep bringing that up because that's one of the things that has really improved my usage
mm,
of GPT is anytime I tell it what I want and I'm not crystal clear on it, or it's not just kind of overly simplified, I then say, here's what I think I want. Again, ask me 10 questions until you are
mm.
95% or better confident that you are clear on what I need you to do. And it'll ask me
Nice.
those 10 questions. So like with the prompt GPT, I say, hey, I'm trying to create a custom GPT to do this. Right. Here's kind of my thesis of what I'm trying to accomplish. Ask me 10 questions so that you can create a prompt for me that I can use to create my custom GPT. It'll do it. It'll ask you the questions. It'll create this kick-ass, like 15-page
Yeah.
prompt for you. You take that, you upload it into the GPT. It creates the
Yeah.
exact GPT you're looking for, and you're on your way. So just by
Nice.
doing that alone, right, it gets you to realize the possibilities, and then you can go crazy with it. But I will say the thing I wouldn't do is what the vast majority of people are doing with it, which is write me a better email, put together a
Yeah.
7 touch sequence for me that I can put on autopilot and hit send. Like
Yeah.
that's just child's play at this point. And to me, if you are trying to automate with I think it's a fool's errand. AI
Mm,
is about augmentation, not automation. You are
nice.
automating yourself out of a job if you are automating. Because think about it, right? If you figured out, say, Irshad, you work for me, right? and you were like an SDR, whatever, and you worked through GPTs and you figured out this amazing prompt that created like the most personalized sequence ever that was getting you a 50% response rate, right? Thanks, Irshad.
Yeah, I'm done.
I don't need to pay you whatever your base
Yes.
salary is anymore plus commissions because this thing now
Yeah.
does it on autopilot. So
Yeah.
why would I pay you now to do this?
Exactly.
Right? So one of the last things I'll say on this point is humans need to be, and I learned this from Gary Vaynerchuk. So I met Gary Vaynerchuk a while back, and this was back in 2017 when I was like, I had seen an email written by AI even before AI was a like
Mm.
mainstay, and it was better and faster than I ever have written. And that's one of the big things of my training was like training people how to write personalized emails and really succinct and really valuable and get responses from executives, right? And I saw this email. These kids actually used my email to train their GPT to do this, or not GPT, but to train AI to do it. And and I saw it, and like I said, it was better and faster than I could have ever done, and it did it in like 20 seconds. And I freaked out. And I met Gary V, and we did a kind of Q&A with a bunch of other entrepreneurs. And when it came to me, I said, Gary, I just saw a robot write an email better, faster, and more personalized than I ever could. I'm like, where does that leave us as humans, right? And he said something that still sticks with me to this day. He said, don't worry about the tech. You're not going to beat it. He goes, but be the last mile. And I was like, what? He goes, be the last mile. He goes, let the tech do all the heavy lifting. Let it do the research. Let it even write the email. Fine, I don't care. But right before you hit send, just make sure you humanize it.
Yeah.
Because as long as there's a human on the other end of that email, call, meeting, whatever it is, there's going to need to be that human touch to it. Because we as humans, going back to psychology, there's like,
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I don't care how personalized AI is getting these days. There's still something about
Yep.
an AI written email, an AI written post that just doesn't feel right. And I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know how to explain it, but I'm like, no, that's either too
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
too optimized, or there's something not right about this. And so that sixth sense in us is going to preclude AI from really getting. Now, I will say, when AI starts buying shit, when robots start buying things, all bets are off. I don't know where
Hmm.
we fit in that equation as humans, but as long as there's a human buying
Yes.
or that we want to engage in, we got to be that last mile, right?
I love that. I think what you mentioned, the last mile was very interesting. And I think as you mentioned, right, the psychology behind ensuring that what AI does, I think you just feel it. Like I personally feel it when there are very good written emails on my inbox with proper information and there is no spelling mistake, appropriate commas. I know there's something wrong with this email and I'm just not interested.
Dashes, like the M dash, double dash, the this hits hard. They use
True.
dumb like what I've never said hits hard in my life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and it kisses your ass. Like there's just something about it that just doesn't land with
Yeah.
me. Look,
Yeah.
I even on social, like I look at LinkedIn, I'm like every post is perfectly optimized for LinkedIn,
Yes.
and it's sentence with CTAs and hard hooks and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's why for me, I've promised my audience that if I use AI, I will tell you I use AI. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of coaches and trainers out there that are using AI as basically to replace themselves, right? It's like they write all their
Yeah.
posts, they write all their content, they write all their
Yes.
responses, and I refuse to do that. Well,
Yeah.
if I do it, I'm telling my audience that I'm doing it. Hey, this is an AI thing. I've used AI to do this, right? Whatever. Or even at the bottom of a post, I'll be like,
Hmm.
almost all mine are original thought, but every once in a while, if I got to do a promo for a
Yep.
sponsor or something like that, and I'll even put at the bottom, hey, AI assist. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Hmm.
100% me, wasn't 100% AI, but this was definitely an AI
Yeah.
assist because my favorite way of using AI is not to say, write me a post. I think that's stupid. It's to say, here's the post I think I want to write. Here's the idea that I have that I think could bring value to the audience here. Could you? I'm just going to talk into AI right now and kind of express what I'm trying to like what I'm trying to get through.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I just word vomit
Yeah.
into
Blur
this
it
thing
out.
and I say,
Yeah.
now take what I just told you and optimize it for a LinkedIn post, and it'll cut it
Hmm.
up. It'll put it together. I'll be like, either it missed the mark or it didn't, right? And if it didn't, if I like it, I still go in and then edit it, and I'm like, okay, nope, I wouldn't say that. I'm going to delete the M dashes, whatever. So it's kind of like the 20-60-20 scenario, right?
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
going to dump 20% of my knowledge into this thing. I'm going to let AI do its magic. And then on the back end, the last 20%, I'm going to make sure that I flavor off before I hit send.
Got it. I think those are some very powerful insights. And I think it all goes back to how we are going to leverage AI, as you mentioned, right? Like using ChatGPT or Copilot or Perplexity, whatever you're using, you just got to identify what works for you. And this is something that I've done, right? Like I've created agents on my own. I use Copilot. So I've created those there. And then I've given it personality. I've given it, like, assume this, you are this role, you're supposed to do this and be very direct to me. Do not sugarcoat things. And I think it gives you very good information. It kind of takes that personality of yourself and then gives you
Yep.
good output, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Now that's one thing, right? Like where we are automating stuff. Now I want to go back to the second aspect, which is we as sales reps, right? Now, what do you think are core fundamental things every sales rep should not should must have, right? And how can we continuously work on them, develop them? Like you mentioned EQ, right? What are those things that we could work on to ensure our fundamentals are also in place, keeping the augmented side aside?
Well, let's start with work ethic. That's one thing that I'm seeing that is sorely lacking.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
I look, I feel like I'm like my dad every time I say this, but uh, I could still outwork almost any millennial and Gen Zer. But I'm 50 years old, and I will still outwork 99% of millennials and Gen Zer. Like it's just, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
it is what it is, and I prove it every time. Like whenever I go to a sales training and I do a training, I usually start 8:30 and end at 4:30 in the afternoon, and usually around 4:30, I end, and from 4:30 to 5, I'm kind of I'm answering questions. People are coming up to me,
Hmm.
whatever, and then 5 to 5:30, I open up my laptop and I check a few emails before I head to the airport or something like that. And by 5:30, the office is a ghost town, like ghost town, like not a single
Yeah.
person in the office. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
understand how you have a 9 to 5 mentality in the profession of sales. I just don't. I'm sorry. So work ethic, that's something you can't teach. Drive,
True.
passion, work ethic. Those are things I can't
Yes.
teach. So, by the way, I hire far more on drive, passion, and work ethic than I do on skills. Far more,
Hmm.
because I can teach skills. I can teach product knowledge. I can't
Yes.
teach the give a shit factor. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's number one. Number two is curiosity.
Hmm.
You have to be curious.
Yes.
You and look, I do believe that some people are born naturally curious and
Hmm.
most people aren't. I think I've been blessed with being like born with being naturally curious.
Yeah.
And I think it also comes down to the fact that I also know I'm not the smartest kid out there. You know what I mean? So it's like, I know I'm not a brainiac. I didn't go to Harvard. I don't have all the answers. Right. And so I'm constantly asking and curious and being very interested in other people, not because I'm going through a litany of questions that I was told to ask by my boss, but because I'm genuinely trying to figure out how I can help you, right? Because at the end
Hmm.
of the day, sales is, I say this a lot, sales isn't about convincing anybody of anything. If you think sales is about convincing people, you're doing it the wrong way, in my opinion. Sales is about helping people solve problems or achieve goals, period. And so if you're trying to convince people and you don't believe in what you sell and all that other shit, you're just a douchebag sales rep that gives us all the bad name. But if you're trying to solve problems and genuinely want to help people figure things out, you can do some really special things. And I think that's the other piece of this is you have to find a product service solution that you believe in. If you are selling something you don't genuinely believe makes a real difference for
True.
the right type of person, go find another job. And I know that's a scary thing to say right now because jobs are tough to come by
Yes.
and everything else, but it will drain the life out of you to sell some shit that you don't believe in. Because you'll have to fake it
Yes.
every day of your
True.
career. You will have to fake it. And that takes a lot of effort. But when you believe in what you sell, that you genuinely believe that what you do makes a difference for the right person, not for everybody, but for the right person, then sales, somebody told me this early in my career, and I still believe it to this day, that sales is the transfer of enthusiasm. That's what it is. It's the transfer of enthusiasm. And I can say this because I know. I could say I was my first startup, I was one sales guy within 50 engineers, right? So I had 50 engineers that I
Hmm.
worked with. 10 of those engineers were Linux engineers. I don't know if you ever hung out with a Linux engineer, but they're a different breed, right? And so I got to learn how to work with them and speak their language. And some of them would always tell me like, yeah, I'm not in sales. I'd be like, you're in sales, right? And they're like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm like, you are. I go, if you just do me a favor, take the perception of sales out of your head for a second here. They're like, why? I was like, all right, let's go through this little exercise. Could you explain to me the last time you fixed something? Like you found a bug or something, or created a software that did something like cool, like that you got into, right? And every one of them will like think for a minute and they'll be like, oh yeah, the other, and they'll literally light up like this. The other day I was deep in this code and I did this and boom, bob, whatever it was. And holy shit. And it turned into this, right? And it's like, awesome. Well, if I needed what that was, I'd want you to do it for me. So you're in sales, right? So it's that passion. And I think that passion goes back to curiosity, because I don't
Hmm.
think you can teach curiosity, but I think you can put people in a position to be curious. And the way you do that is by getting them interested in something. Because if you're interested in something, you become curious about that thing and you want to learn
Yes.
about that thing. So as leadership, we have to that's why hiring for passion and all that stuff is so important. And then we have to find a way to get these reps to be curious enough, or to be interested enough in our clients, in our what we do, to then become curious, to then get to the problems, right? That we can then solve. So I think those two pieces, and then just, the other piece is just agility and being able to test and try different things all the time. Somebody asked me, John, if you could go back and tell your 22-year-old self something, what would it be, right? My number one answer to that was A/B split test everything you do. And when I say that, I mean, like, if say you call into VPs of sales in the SaaS industry, right? Come up with two different messages to VPs of sales in the SaaS industry. Make 20 phone calls with this approach, make 20 phone calls with that approach. See which one yields a higher response rate. If you got one email that can go out to 50 people because they all fit a similar profile, fine, okay. But break it up into 20, 25, and 25 and tweak the subject line. See which one gets a higher
Hmm.
open rate.
Yes.
Objection handling. Ain't no rocket science to objection handling. It's just science. Write down the objection that you're getting smoked on right now, right? Just can't deal with, right? Go into ChatGPT or Perplex, whatever, and say, give me 5 different techniques on how to handle this specific objection. Tell me what the
Hmm.
technique name is and how you would say it. Read through them. If you don't like those 5, give me 5 more. Give me 5 more. Find 2 that you like that kind of fit your style, right?
Yes.
The next 10 times that objection comes up, deal with it this way. The next 10 times, deal with it that way. See which one yields a higher response rate. This way you become agile, you keep testing things and trying things, and you figure out what works and what doesn't work, and you can evolve faster than most.
And I think what you mentioned in there, the most critical aspect is also the person's own innate self motivation, drive. I would not even say motivation, right? Because motivation can be up and down. It's about staying disciplined. You know what you have to do. You have the right mindset or the attitude to ensure that, you know what, you're going to get this done. Like, as you mentioned, work, I think, is the number one. And I think I totally agree to that because, like, I think this is something which is very different and probably consistent across a lot of people that are high achievers. I've seen that these guys are very confident. They can literally challenge anyone on the board and they can say, you know what, I will outwork you. And this is the kind of attitude I had in my school. Like, I still remember when I was in college and I was not a top grader, right? I wasn't someone who scored amazing, but I was still decent. There were people in my college, there were around 150 odd people, and there were campus drives that used to happen wherein companies used to come interview you and then pick the best candidates. So in one of those campus drives, there were around 150 people, and there were also people that had like 95% grade, 92 and all, and I was around 60s. And someone did challenge me saying, you know what, it shall, like, because I was one of those backbenchers that always used to make fun of things and things of that sort. So I came to the stage and someone just mocked me saying, okay, Irshad's here and let's see what he's going to do. And then that just, I don't know what happened, but it just ticked me off. And on that respective stage, I just said, you know, I'll be the first guy out of all of you 150 people to get the job. And my exams finished in July 16th, 2015. And I had an offer letter in my hand to join at July 22nd, 2015, just a
Yeah.
week. And it just worked out. I mean, it's all about, you know, sometimes you just have that innate built in you. Sometimes it's because of your early childhood when your environment shaped that psychology in you, where you identify, you know what, nothing happened, if whatever happens, I'm going to figure things out, right? I think that's, and it's just something that we have to consistently work on, get curious. I think if we have that, this is something probably that we can build down the lane. Good, you want to say
Okay.
something?
No, I was going to say this. I think there's 2 types of people in this world. There's people who life happens to, and people who life happens for. People who
Yeah.
life happens to wait for their company to invest in training for them, wait for them to invest in IT, tech
Love
for
it.
them. They say, why me, when something bad happens to them,
Yes.
right? Because you're so fucking special. People who life happens for take everything as it comes. They're like, okay,
Yes.
that sucked, but how can I figure this out? Like, okay, cool. Like, I don't have the tech. I'm going to go figure it out. I don't have the training. I'm going to go on YouTube and spend hours listening to YouTube channel stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Agreed.
there's a difference there. And, that's why I don't think it's really that hard to be overly successful, at least to a marginal
Yes.
level, because you just put in the work. You just show up these days, and that you're doing better than 80% of the population out there, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? It's really not that hard. I tell my daughter that all the time. She's 15. I'm like, sweetheart, all you got to do is show up. I go, if you just
Yes.
show up and do the job, like the bare minimum of the job, you're gonna stand out like by a mile compared to what most kids are
True.
doing these days.
True. True. And these are few things that we spoke about, right? Uh, AI, how sales reps can leverage that, how sales reps themselves have to have some foundational, fundamental things that they should have or work on. Now comes the third part, which I think is more critical, which is the EQ portion, right? The intelligence quotient, the emotional intelligence of these individuals. So, what do you think, Mark? Is this something that is coachable? And if it's coachable, what are some things that give me top 3 or 5 that people can coach themselves on how to become better emotionally, manage those?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot to it, and I'm not a specialist in EQ by any stretch. I think I have it, but how to coach and train it, I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
think but if we go back to curiosity and a belief system and what you do and those type of things, I think you can introduce some things that will make a difference. So for instance, I think one of the best things here's one, my first company, when people would start, onboarding and stuff, I wouldn't give them product knowledge. That wasn't part of their onboarding. The first month that they were at the company, they had to go interview. I gave them a blank org chart of our organization, and I said, you got to go fill with the titles, not the names. And I would say, you got to go meet every person on this list, because we were a small business. But I was like, you have to set up meetings with everybody on this list. And the goal is, I need you to understand why they worked at this company and how their role impacts what you're going to do. So you'd have to do it just like you would a sales rep. You got to prep for the meeting. You got to have questions. You got to have an
Mm,
agenda. You got to write and all that stuff.
yeah.
And then the other part, which I think is the part where the EQ comes in here, is go talk to customers. I said, I want you to talk to customers and understand why they work with us, why they stay with us, the impact we make on their lives, right? And I need you to believe in what we're doing here,
Yeah.
right? Because those stories, first of all, that's gold when it comes to conversations and messaging
True.
and all that other stuff, because now it's genuine, right? It's not some, case study
Yeah.
that I send you that I had no idea about how to do, right? So I think that gets okay, now I understand why people work here at our company, and I understand why clients work for us. The Another one that I tell everybody to do is, especially if you're at a crossroads in your career and you're like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not happy with this company or this job, whatever, right? Tell everybody to ask, like, if they've done the core value exercise. And when I say the
Mm,
core value exercise, it's, you can just, search for it on ChatGPT and have it do it for you, like with you. But it's really, the essence of it is like 50 different values that are on a piece of paper, right? They all represent something. And then you kind of go through the process of picking the ones that really resonate with you, right?
mm,
And then, you get it down to 20, then you get it down to 10, then to 5, and you really hone in on the top 5 core values that represent you. And then you have to make them actionable, like not just, honesty. It's like, I will be honest with every single thing, but whatever, you have to make it kind
mm,
of really own it, about so that that's the lens you look through, right? Because I think a lot of people obviously have values, whatever, but until you really do the work to nail down the ones that are really you, and beat them up a little bit and be like, I don't know about that one. That doesn't seem like, I've probably broken that value a couple of times and it didn't bother me. Whereas when I
mm,
break this value, holy shit, I lose my mind, right?
yeah.
Like, I just, fairness is a value of mine. Like, for some reason, when things aren't fair, I get this very, like, I hate bullies. You know what I mean? Like, that's another thing. Like, I hate bullies. Every time I see a bully, I want to beat the shit out of the bully. So I'm like, what does that mean as far as a value of mine, right? When somebody lies to me, I basically cross them off my list. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
I like, as soon as you break my trust, this
mm,
this relationship is different. different, period. So trust is like a hardcore, right? So going through that exercise, now there's your decision lens. Because I always tell people, if if you can align on values, like core values, right? You can do some special stuff. Right. Yeah. Like, and we can argue, we can debate, but we'll ultimately come to a point of mutual respect. Right. But if you and I
Hmm.
values are off, we're just going to tear each other apart. We're just going to rip each other apart.
Yeah.
So with that core value, now you can start to look at opportunities. You can look at companies. You can look at leadership. You can look at opportunities with through that lens and say, does this align with my values? And if it does, I'm going all in. And guess what? That's where your messaging, your everything's going to come through so much more naturally when there's that alignment. It's also why, when I told my reps, when I had a bunch, we'd go through the exercise of, their territories and tiering out their accounts, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? And then the tier ones, I'd say you got to give a list of top 25. Like I want you to figure out who your top 25 tier 1 accounts that you want to get into are. Okay. It was based on demographics and all this other stuff. But then they would bring that list and I would say, all right, before you prospect into any of these companies, I need you to go back into their website, whatever. And I need you to come back to me and tell me why you personally want to work with that company. Is it their values? Is it their mission? Does their product
Yeah.
kick ass? Is their leadership team insane, right? What's the connection for you? Just because, not just because you want to sell them sales training and they're a good fit, but like, why do you personally want to work with them?
Yeah.
Because once they made that connection, again, everything was so much more authentic. Everything was so much more like, real with their messaging and their approach to those accounts versus people who are just going through the motions trying to get meetings, sending their
Yes.
50 cadences out a day. So I think those are EQ things that you can do to see if you can spark that EQ factor in these reps. And if they take it, great. You know what I mean? If they get it because they talk to customers and like, I understand, I got a passion for this, and right. I'm actually curious because I care about this customer. Therefore, I'm listening. I'm not just asking questions because I got to fill
Yes.
out my medic, stupid thing. I'm asking questions because I give a shit, and I'm like, and I'm disqualifying as much as I'm qualifying.
Hmm.
And I like once I qualify somebody, once kind of somebody fits like looks like a duck, smells like a duck type of thing. I'm like, okay, cool.
Hmm.
Then my approach is I try to disqualify. I ask all the questions of why you shouldn't work with me because you're going to come up with them anyways. You're going to, whether
Yeah.
subconsciously or consciously, you're going to figure them out. So I might as well pull them out up front. Right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, why wouldn't you do it this way? And I even talk about my competitors. I'm like, actually, have you talked to XYZ competitor yet? Because it sounds like what you're asking for is actually a lot more aligned with that. Right. And just that alone gives you the amount of credibility that gives you in front of a client that says, like, I might not be the right fit here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I am the right fit here, but like, that type of stuff goes miles. So I think those are hopefully some ideas that people can use to improve their EQ. But one of the last things I'll say is just get away from Zoom. Go out and meet people in person. And you don't have to meet like if you can meet customers, that's fantastic. Like that's awesome if you can go face to face with the client.
Hmm.
But even if you can't, go to a networking event, go to a trade show, and just try to engage with people in person
Hmm.
so that you can read their body language and those type of things. Because
Yes.
early in my career, I did a ton of networking, like, going to events and all this other stuff. And when I was, sales, okay, pitch, and here's my, we're a little leading
Yeah.
provider, all that crap. Zoom hides a lot of body language, right?
True.
I could be very disinterested in this conversation and I could probably hide it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But in person, all the body language here, it's hard to hide. So and I remember when I was younger, like I would bust into a conversation, stick my hand and be like, "Hey, Irshad, what's going on, man? Like, so tell me what you do, right?" And then you'd ask me, and I'd give you my pitch, and I would literally watch you get uncomfortable,
Yes.
watch you want to get out of this conversation. I could
Yep.
feel you not wanting to be. I could watch your eyes look here behind
Yes.
me instead of here, right?
True.
And like I could sense it, and maybe that's because my EQ is a little bit higher than most, and some people just don't sense that. But I could feel it when I would
Yes.
pitch somebody on something, and I would be like, why did they get out of this? Like that person just left. I thought they
Yeah.
were a good person, like, and they just, they had to go to the bathroom. It's like I thought you just went to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I think getting back to the human connection and figuring out how to read body language, figure out like what it feels like when it's not an interesting conversation, trying to be curious about others in those
Yes,
non-sales
true,
scenarios, right?
true.
And just be like you could be the most popular kid in any room by saying these words, right? Tell me about you. Tell me more about you. That's interesting. Tell me more, right? Like literally,
Yeah.
is it like you and I could meet and you could walk away from a conversation with me not knowing a fucking thing about who I am or what I do, but absolutely loving me because I
Yes,
made the conversation about you.
yes,
Right? Like people are like, "Oh
yes.
man, I love John." It's like, what'd you learn about him? Fucking nothing, man. I don't
Nothing.
know, but holy shit, I don't know. I love the kid. You know what I mean? Because you
Yeah,
made
yeah,
him. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to feel like somebody's listening to them, right? So just you could practice that everywhere. That's why sales is such a beautiful profession because you can practice sales literally everywhere you go, everywhere,
yeah,
right? You just got to have the
yeah.
mentality.
I love what you just mentioned. There are two things that just strike, like it was very important and flashed right in front of my eyes when you were saying them. The first one obviously was you saying, keep the conversation interesting by asking those individuals. Like, don't talk about yourself. You have to get that person. I think this is one of the technique that is also discussed in the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I was blown away by this fact because it's not about you, and it also has some real examples around when you start asking people what they want, and you just be the silent guy, right? And this is very true even in sales conversation. For example, when let's say you as a sales rep or a customer success manager are meeting your customers, right? If you are if you are talking 70% of the time on that respective call, or on that respective dinner or whatever that is, you failed, right? Your food typically, and there's another aspect to it wherein they said if you're on a dinner with your customer and if your plate is empty and the other person's not, right, that's a bad sign as well. Whereas if the other person's plate is not empty and yours is full, it's a good sign because that means that person is talking and it's giving you information. So really amazing stuff there, right? There was one of the other pointers as well which you mentioned. It was around trade shows that you mentioned, wherein how people are getting in touch with people is more important because there are a lot of micro expression that you and I can hide on this call, right? Like obviously I can only see this much portion of you, but if you and I are sitting or standing in a trade show or meeting in person, I can look at your foot, I can see where they're pointing at, I can look at your hands, are you interested, have you closed hands, how are you? I think those things are gold, and I think as sales reps this is very important because this is something that I like to do, right? Like where I work today, I try to attend, I try to meet people in person as much as possible because that gives you insight into their appropriate individual, their personalities, their human nature, which you can learn and then start incorporating, ensuring that they get what they want, and at the same time you also succeed because if they are succeeding you will succeed as well. One of the other important point, I think we have covered a good ground on the end, let's say, and a sales rep, an individual. There are two aspects that I'd like to probably get your thoughts on. The number one, next, taking this up a notch, would be leaders. As a leader, if you're looking to hire people in your organization, what type of qualities you should look for? You briefly touched upon it, but if you had to highlight top five traits that are important.
Yeah, I mean, coachability, curiosity, and work ethic are the three that I would look for. I mean, it obviously depends on the role, but I think those are pretty universal across the board. So
What
coachability
about
is, I
for
think,
leaders? What about for
like
leaders?
hiring
Let's say you're
leaders.
hiring leaders.
Same thing, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Coachability, work ethic, and curiosity, because I think it translates across the board. But leaders, I think you need to look for, again, people who are agile, people who are dynamic, people who aren't trying to like implement the playbook that they had 5 years ago that
Yes.
made them successful. So if somebody comes in with a quote unquote proven playbook, I would throw them out of my office immediately almost because there's nothing's proven right now. Like
Yeah.
nothing moving forward here. We're all making shit up in this world of AI. Like we are all living in a legacy model right now.
Yeah.
And none of us, I don't care who you are, Sam Altman, I don't give a shit. You have no idea what is coming here. Sorry.
Yeah.
So if you're stuck in your old school ways of, and don't get me wrong, some old school stuff is really important, relationship development and
Yes.
those type of things. But when I say like your approach from especially from a sales standpoint, if you're trying to implement a playbook from 5 years ago with SDRs and
Yes.
BDRs and AEs and and cadences and all that other stuff, and I'd probably run away from those people. I want people who are like, okay, here's the framework that I use to test and try different things, and here's how we're going to continuously evolve and learn what works and doesn't work along the way. So that to me, you also need somebody who
Hmm.
is really good. I here in the States, so my football team here, the New England Patriots, they
Mm-hmm.
got a new coach, and this guy Mike Vrabel, and he's a player's coach. Like for years, we had this guy
Hmm.
Bill Belichick, who was not a player's coach. It was my way or the
Hmm.
highway, right? Like
Hmm.
his famous saying was "Do your job," right? And
Yeah.
he didn't give a shit about culture. He didn't give a shit about any of that stuff. It was like, "Do your job. I don't care. Everybody's replaceable. It's my way or the
Hmm.
highway." That worked with my generation, quite frankly. Because
Hmm.
look, when I got into sales, like I didn't need all the fancy shit. Like, give me my territory, give me my quota, and please
Yeah.
get out of my way. Like, I
Yeah.
just want to go make money, right? This generation's a lot different. Mike Vrabel is the perfect example of what I think today's is all about. He has great values. He has accountability, right? Accountability is a really important
Hmm.
factor in success from a management standpoint, leadership standpoint. But he's also empathetic and sympathetic to the team. He's played the game before. You know what I mean? Like he was
Hmm.
a player
Yes.
where Bill Belichick was never a player. He was a great tactician. He was a great strategist, but he never really played the game.
Hmm.
And Mike Vrabel has played the game, and he knows that culture matters, right? He knows that diverse culture matters. So it's not just I want everybody to think like me. He wants people to challenge him. He sets up the structure so that people do
Hmm.
challenge him, right?
Hmm.
So I think that's you gotta have somebody who is open and willing to try new things, somebody who appreciates diversity and skillful discussion or debate and fosters it, quite frankly, as opposed to penalizes it, and somebody who's really gonna hold people accountable,
Hmm.
but the right way, like not just you didn't do your job so you're fired scenario.
Hmm.
Like, hey, what happened here? Why didn't you get, because a lot of people have problems. Like these days everybody's got a problem, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
we're all dealing with personal shit these
True.
days, and if you can't connect with people at that level, then you don't really know what the problem is. You know what I mean? Maybe today I was, maybe this month it was a disaster for me, and I didn't close any business, or wasn't able to get any success. Well, I had a bad month. Well, why did you have a bad month? Well, maybe it's
Hmm.
because my fucking, dad was sick. You know what I mean? Like my head's not in the
Yeah.
game right now. And
Yeah.
if you can appreciate that about people, you get far more loyalty, you get far more
Yes.
longevity, you get far more people who want to follow you. And you don't have to be a VP of sales to be a leader either. Like leader
True.
isn't a title. There's plenty of SDRs who I can point to and say that's a leader.
These are, yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have to, it's not
Yeah.
the position, it's the mentality.
Now, one of the pointers you mentioned, I think it's a good segue to our last piece, which I really want to hone on to, right? It's the organizations and how they are operating in this world right now, right? With all the rise of AI and everything. Now, some of the important pointers we have touched upon is coachability factor for leaders and individual contributors, let's say attitude, mindset, and all of this, right? But with regards to organizations, obviously a lot of organizations are moving towards training their employees in bit size, right? Bite size micro learning, giving them whenever they are free, they can take small pieces of that learning material and learn, versus giving a mass dump of data, like which was obviously the older way. So what are your thoughts? Is that micro learning good? If yes, good. What are some other things we can do to ensure as organizations we are training our individuals correctly?
Yeah. So, my take on this is, and there's proof on this one and the study was flawed. I get it. But, MIT just put out that study that 95% of AI initiatives fail. Corporate AI
Mm,
initiatives fail. Like MIT just put that study out. There's a lot of debate on how flawed this study was, whatever. But I see it. I work with organizations, and I think the top down approach now to making decisions is not going to fly in a world of AI, right? Because think about it,
mm,
right? By the time an executive team identifies whatever the problem is, okay, yeah, okay, we have a problem here, so we got to fix it, right? So what's a solution to fix that problem? All right. Well, now I got to go find the top three vendors or whoever that fixes that
mm.
problem. We now have to go through an evaluation process. We now have to choose one of them. Then we have to implement that thing. Then we have to train
Yes.
on that thing. Then we have to get adoption on that thing. you're 9 to 12 months out from any significant AI across the board initiative gaining any traction at all. And can you honestly tell me what you think this world is going to look like in 9 to 12 months?
Nope.
I
Yeah.
have no clue. Honestly have no clue. I can maybe give you a sense of by the end of this year, we're probably going to be, you know what I mean? But you tell
Yeah.
me like a year out, what is the end of next year going to look like? I wouldn't take any bets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a fool's errand, in my opinion. I think you have to do the bottom up approach right now. I think the only companies and organizations that are going to survive are the ones that work together and break down all
Mm,
the silos and all the bullshit, right? And start to think of things drastically different. And so I encourage a lot of my clients to turn their sales orgs into what I call sales labs.
mm,
So if you think of engineers, right? Engineers, they get hackathons, right? Where they pick something and they kind of nerd out on it for a little while and they figure out whatever the solution is. Well, I think organizations, GTM, go to market organizations do the same thing. So every Friday afternoon, get together, pizza and beer, whatever, and pick some aspect of the sales process that isn't working. Right. And I don't care what it is, by the way, prepping for meetings, updating CRM, whatever it is. Okay. And then break up into little groups, right? So put SDRs with an AE and maybe even an SE in there and a CS, like marketing in there, like a team of 4, 5, 6 people, right? And then give whatever the problem is, what are we trying to solve here? Give them a framework of how to address it, like of what we're looking for. And then give everybody the AI tools or whatever they want to use and say, all right, you all have an hour to figure out a better solution to this thing. Let everybody kind of work together. The young reps are going to bring the tech savviness. The old reps are going to be the business acumen. The marketers are going to bring the engineers are going to be able to bring prompting and whatever it is into the equation. And then at the end of that hour, you just kind of, everybody presents their solution to the problem. And then we all vote, okay, which one do we like best? Cool. We like that one. Great. Now let's implement that next week and see what happens. So to your question of micro learning, I think it's better to be micro learning in this world than it is to
yeah.
macro, like dump.
Yeah.
Even though I think there is a argument to do the dump for the foundation, but regardless of whether it's the dump or the micro, it's not individual. It's
Mm,
team.
I see.
So
Interesting.
if you're going to send out a bunch of emails to the team and have me sit in my cubicle and watch a video on something from a micro learning standpoint and then expect me to go do it, I think that's stupid. But
Mm,
if you're going to get the team together here and be like, hey, here's what we're trying to solve, here's what we're trying to do, I want everybody to work on this, whatever, then all of a sudden you can, because let's go back to what I talk about split testing, A/B split testing, right? Well, A/B split testing is great, but as an individual, it's really damn hard to get to a
yes.
statistically relevant number for A/B split testing to matter at all, right? I mean, I always use 100 just because it's an easy number and I'm not a math major, but like to get to 100 dials with one
Yes.
approach and 100 dials with another approach, 100 objection handling techniques with this
Yes.
one and 100, like, that takes some time,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of other variables involved in that. Whereas if I got a group of 20 reps, we can get to some statistically relevant numbers really fast,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that fosters teamwork, that improves business acumen, that I guarantee would improve retention, right, of your reps and like I said, satisfactions. If you take that construct and say let's micro learn every week, pick anything every. You don't even have to do the hackathon, by the way. You could just pick. What I used to do with my teams is I would pick one thing. We would go through our team meetings and all that fun stuff and goals and everything. But in the end, I'd be like, all right, everybody, what do we want to work on this week? And be like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you want to work on? Like, is there a certain objection that we're getting killed on, or is like getting through gatekeepers or something like that, or pricing, or like what's going on right now? Anybody got something that they're struggling with? And somebody was, yeah, John, getting through gatekeepers. John, this is whatever. Okay, cool. Let's figure out a solution for that. Right? Everybody open up in this back Google, right? Like the best way to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it. We'd pick a technique, we'd pick approach that we kind of role played a little bit and be like, oh, okay, all right, that kind of feels right. Okay, cool. Now, everybody this week, no matter what you do, okay, do whatever you want. But when that thing happens, the
Mm,
objection, the gatekeeper, whatever it is, you got to use that approach.
yeah.
Okay. So I would just have, again, old school. I have a notebook here and I'd everybody write down on the top of the notebook, problem equals whatever that is,
Mm,
solution or approach equals whatever. And then a T-bar plus minus.
mm,
And they would just keep it next to their desk. And every time that happened, they would look at then they would go, it worked, it didn't work. 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 And then at the end of the week, I would just collect all those things and all the numbers, put it all together. And on the next Monday meeting, I'd be like, all right, everybody, let's say it was an objection. We hit that objection 50 times last week. Okay, good. We used this approach and we got 20 positives and 30 negatives. That's actually pretty good from an objection handling standpoint. So let's put that one on the list. It looks like it works. Good. Next week, what do you want to try? Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So,
Now, this brings me to a question which I know a lot of people would be thinking, right? Especially leaders across the board would be, this is a great tactic. Like, I love the perspective of doing it as a team rather than doing it individual. But now one aspect that comes to it is how do you ensure that the team members are also following through, keeping and ensuring that these guys also do it and not drop the ball.
well, I think that's where the leadership comes in. I mean, it's the culture of the organization and the structure that you put in place, and then the accountability that you do afterwards, right? So it's there's technical solutions to it. There's team meeting. There's structure of how you structure your weeks and your teams and how they those type of things. And then it's setting the baseline for expectations on accountability of what they're going to do, right? So it's not just doing that thing. It's like, okay, now that we've done that thing, how are we going to implement that? And based on that, this is what we all agree to, right? And I think this again goes back to bottom up versus top down. Instead of me telling you
Yeah.
you have to make, X amount of
Yes.
dials a day or do this thing, it's like, well, we just figured this thing out. Okay. Does everybody agree that seems like a pretty good way to address this thing? Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, then next week, what's realistic for us to do? And how are we going to track
Mm,
it? Right.
good point.
And
Yeah.
you just get the feedback. And, hopefully as a leader, you have some guidance to that. Like you can kind of, well, what if we did this? Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So I think it's just more about the accountability factor and doing it in a way that is not stick, right? Like a lot of stuff that we do as management is more stick than carrot, right? Like CRM is a perfect example. Like the reason that reps hate CRM is because they don't see any benefit in it for them. It's all negative.
Mm,
It's like I'm updating CRM so I can get yelled at for my forecast. I'm updating
yeah.
CRM so I can get yelled at for my activity level. Why the fuck would I want to update CRM if all that I get from
Yeah.
it is negativity, right? Whereas if somebody were to say to me, John, we're rolling out CRM, this is what we're going to do. And if you track things this way, we're actually going to be able to run some reports and some insights and come back to you to show you kind of when you do these things, it helps accelerate deals. When you do those things, it doesn't. So we're actually going to bring that feedback back to you so that you can learn
Mm,
how to be, improved. Like now I'm updating CRM every day, right? So I think we have to, yes, there has to be a stick. Yes, we can't be lovey-dovey across the board to everybody because people do need discipline. But I think you can create a culture of accountability, but you have to get people's buy-in for it as opposed to
yes.
just, saying you're going to do this.
I think that's the very important part, I think, which resonates with me, right? That says it's not you setting then the cadence saying, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this by the end of next week, but we getting a buy-in from all the individuals saying, okay, we are gonna hold ourselves, all of us accountable to this standard. Do you all agree? What do you guys have to say, right? If it's lesser, it's lesser, but we come to a conclusion and then hold people accountable. I think that's good.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with like with managing, the team itself. Like you got your A reps, your B reps, and your C reps. You got your great, average,
Yeah.
and crap, right? Your A reps, what you do with your A reps is you kind of back off of them. You over communicate with your A reps and you talk about their goals, what they want to achieve, right? So for
Mm,
instance, like, okay, say this year you hit your quota. Okay, great. In addition to the commissions and the comp and all that stuff, what are you going for? Like, what do you
mm,
want? And I might want more time for vacation. I want to, whatever these things. I want to drive a Lamborghini, whatever. So now it's my goal as this A rep, and then you're just going to help me get there, right? So
yes.
gone. And now I just over communicate, but I don't like micromanage any of that. The B reps, you kind of work together on those goals, and
Mm,
you're a little bit more shorter term, like this quarter. What do you think you want to do, right? That type of thing,
mm,
and let's kind of work together on these goals and go from there. The C reps, the ones who are struggling, they're usually struggling because losing is a habit, quite frankly. Like when you're in a negative tailspin, you tend to be in a negative tailspin. And
mm,
so if you try to like, here's, oh, what goal? No. You have to micromanage your C's, but not spend too much time with them. And I
mm.
say that because if you spend too much time with your worst reps, what you're communicating with your B and your A reps is you need to suck in order for me to get my attention. Okay. So
Interesting.
with the
Yeah.
with the C reps, you have to set very clear but very short-term goals and try to get them back on the winning track. And so momentum
Mm,
starts moving a different direction. So with my C reps, it's you're not setting your goals at all. I'm setting your goals.
I see.
So today you're going to make 50 dials, right?
Mm,
Let's just start there. Can you just do the job? Great. Now tomorrow, can you make 50 dials and get through 5 gatekeepers? Great. Good job. Now, can you do 50
Mm,
dials, 5 gatekeepers, 1 meeting? Great. You know what I mean? And you just keep like
yeah.
reinforcing the positivity, but this isn't on you anymore. Like this is
Yes.
I am telling you what you need to do and you are going to go do it. And if you don't go do it, you're fired. Period. Right? So like that's kind of how you look at it. So I don't like micromanaging in any way shape or form, but with people who are struggling, you kind
Yes.
of have to. You have to get very
Yeah.
detailed with them, but you can't spend it's a balance. You can't spend too much time with them because
Yeah.
it'll suck you away from helping the people that are making the vast majority of your money. Because usually, unfortunately, a C rep is almost never going to become an A rep.
Hmm.
Almost never. They'll
Can they
they'll
become
they'll
a B
become a
rep?
decent one. They can become a
Okay.
B rep. You know what I mean, and be good,
Hmm.
but very rare unless you wake them up. You know what I mean? Unless they've
Yeah.
been kind of like just like not engaged, not interested at all because you haven't really tapped into that true passion that they have. Every
Hmm.
once in a while there's that group of C reps where a new leader comes in and says or does something that just gets them to light the up and want to work. Okay, maybe those people will could, but that's very rare. Usually if you're a C rep, you're you're the one complaining all the time. You're the one bitching and moaning about the comp plan. You're the one telling me that the territories are unfair. You're the one saying that you're the one going home at 5 o'clock on the nose, right? Like that's again goes back to hiring.
Yeah. And I love that perspective because this is one of the approach that one of my person that I really look up to, one of the leaders as well, kind of gave me this mind, this way to metric, right? A, B, and C. Like you should know who your A, B, and C reps are, and I think that beautifully ties to how you can potentially work with those C reps individually as well. One last question that I have, I know we are coming to the end, is around a new trend that we see towards organization, which is moving towards holistic revenue enablement techniques, right? It's like where you integrate the sales, customer success, marketing, and more. So, what do you think about this strategy? Because you work with a lot of organizations, do you think this is a better strategy, or having sales independent, marketing independent works better?
Like I said, I think if the companies who are still siloed are going to lose. In general, I think the trend of aligning is important.
Mm,
I think enablement needs to elevate because it has been. I think unfortunately, it had a little. It was on the rise. It was like, oh, enablement, and it went from training to enablement, right?
yes.
But I think RevOps has now taken over as the darling child, and enablement's kind of now the redheaded stepchild, quite frankly. And their influence isn't high, so they're inherently reactive, and so that's why I think elevating to revenue enablement is important because it's about aligning the whole GTM function.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think it's critical that enablement elevates from just training sales reps to or product knowledge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To like figuring out how to really enable the GTM motion here and be the connective tissue that brings it all together.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And one last question, right? And this is to do with the whole topic that we have discussed. Now, as an organization, how can potentially at this current day, because we don't know what the future holds, right? But at this current pace of the world, as an organization, what do you think we can do to ensure our sales are increasing, conversions are increasing, and we are doing the right things, possibly?
There's nothing I can say on that one. To tell you, there's way too many variables, man. To because it's what you sell, who you sell to, the market that you're in, the region that you're in. Like there's no guarantee right now. I think that's probably the one thing that you can do is just understand that there is no guarantee, and that if you keep trying the same stuff, if you follow through with the same stuff that you've been doing, the definition of insanity, like you're going to lose. So I think it's how you can win is make sure you're hiring the right people. Make sure you understand the personalities of the people that you're putting on the bus. Like I would get really deep into personality profiles when it comes to hiring, right? I would do disc or whatever it is on my
Yes.
leadership team and make sure that the hiring for that team fit that profile so they could communicate more openly. I would really look at my go to market strategy and see like where is this not working, and throwing more bodies at it, or throwing like, is that really the
Yeah.
answer? Which usually the answer is no. um, and then just creating some type of structure where the you force the teamwork, you force the collaboration between the departments, because it's always been sales is on this side, marketing's on that side, and the sales and marketing alignment issue has been an issue since I got into sales, and it's still an issue
Yeah.
to this day. I would make sure that you have the right tools in place for your team to be
Mm,
effective, so they're not wasting effort. Like data is I thought AI was going to solve the data problem, like the bad data issues. Like I was like, oh, just
mm,
tell AI to fix it, right? And it is more apparent now
yeah,
than ever that garbage in,
true.
garbage out is still
Yes.
as relevant. So it's like you could lipstick on a pig. Like you could put AI on top of a shitty data set, and it's going to make it more shitty, right? So it's like making sure you take a step back and you make sure that, because that's ultimately also what wastes a lot of reps time and also a lot of frustration and puts a lot of wasted effort. So if you're going to like align sales, marketing, customers, all that stuff into like an ABM function, right? Where it's like you got the perfect accounts and you're tearing them out and you're approaching them from marketing and you're calling into them and all that other stuff. Like if your data is bad, it's just going to cause
Yeah.
chaos. It's going to be a mess, right? And you're going to
Mm,
frustrate every aspect of that GTM function. So I think stepping back and saying, like, okay, like, are we clear on our ideal customer profile? How accurate is our data set when we have this stuff? Where are we going to get our information? And then based on that, how are we going to fill in these gaps as far as what roles need to be played? And and then it all always comes down to the growth factor here, right? Like hyper growth. I have a disdain for venture capital because it forces so many unnatural
yes.
things. You know what I mean? It's volume, 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 go, go,
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
go, and it's like whoa, whoa, whoa. We need to slow down here. We need to slow down to speed up. And I
True.
think that spending time to really look through and do some research and find an account that you can make a difference for, and then circling them around with value and adding and insights is going to
Mm,
get you far further, and probably have a better customer who's going to last longer. Their TCO, their all is going to be better across the board, their retention, their NRR, and all that stuff. But I still see 100 dials a day, 50, it's like good luck.
what I really love, especially the last part, John, was the fact that when I asked you that question, and I'm not gonna edit it by the way, right? Because you being able to say, you know what, I don't know, is a trait in itself that a lot of people don't have. Because I've seen, because I interact with a lot of people from different industries and all. I've seen, and every if someone tells you they have the answer for everything, yeah, you just know that okay, what this person is trying to do. But I really appreciate the way you said that. If you don't know something, I don't know, and I think that's something that's a trait that also sales guys need to learn at times, right?
Oh,
Because and then you tied it back beautifully to showing the prospect, saying, "Hey, Mr.
yeah,
Customer, let's figure it out together. Let's
figure this
work
out
together."
together. Yep.
Right? So that's awesome.
It's
Now
it's
I know
it's the
we've
same thing with somebody. It's like the same thing with influencers. Anybody who tells me they're an influencer is not an influencer. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I'm like,
agreed.
what? Like, I hate it when somebody calls me an influencer. I'm like, no. I'm like, I just do my job here. I'm like, if I influence people, great, but please don't call me an influencer. Right?
Yeah. Awesome. So one last thing, John, how can people reach out to you when they want to contact you? They like your word.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So jbarrows.com. That's the website. That's where you can find everything. My YouTube channel's on there. My podcast is on there. It's called Make It Happen Mondays. I do have a membership for people who are out there. If actually you use podcast, you the coupon code podcast, you can get a 20% discount. So if you hear it on this, it's all my content. So I got 2 programs, Filling the Funnel, Driving to Close. It's $420, 20% off of that. And it gives, like, it's all the same training I've given Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, Google, Amazon, all that stuff, and a lot more. So there's that, and then there's LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I was probably one of the first members of LinkedIn. I got 415,000 people following me, something like that. I can't accept any more requests, so I apologize for that. I've hit the limit on 30,000 connections, but you can follow me on LinkedIn. Ring the bell. If on my profile there's a bell that all my stuff will show up. Yeah, and then Instagram. Instagram's a way I do a lot of free consulting. So if anybody has like a direct question, and they can hit me up on Instagram. The handle's John JOHNM as in Michael, Barrows BARROWS, and you just ping me a kind of a DM, be like, "Hey John, I'm trying to figure this out," and I'll usually get right back to you.
Awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and include all of those links in the description section of our podcast.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much, John, for taking your time out and joining us on the podcast. It was an absolute blast to have you.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.